You don't want to be rich in this life, but poor in the next. What does poverty in the next life look like? A hellfire, a fire that burns 70 times hotter than the fire on earth. How do we find that balance between working in this dunya, whilst at the same time being focused on the akhirah? In this video, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to share with you how, despite your businesses that you're working and the money that you're making, how to make sure that the akhirah is your focus. And this is really what it means to be righteous and rich. If you're wondering who I am, my name is Imran ibn Mansur. I'm a 7-figure entrepreneur with Allah's permission. I'm also a student of Islamic knowledge and I give da'wah. And in this video, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to show you how to abandon the dunya and work towards the akhirah, even whilst you're making money in this dunya. With that said, without any further ado, let's begin.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, welcome back to another righteous episode of Righteous and Rich. Today's episode from the outset might seem that it goes against the core, the foundation of what Righteous and Rich is based upon. But hopefully by the end of the video, you'll be able to see that there's no clash between the two. And in fact, they go hand in hand. And that is the issue of leaving off the dunya in its entirety and facing completely towards the akhirah. Why is this topic something that we've decided to discuss today, Imran?
Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Because akhi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, wal akhiratu khayrun wa abqa, that the next life is better and it's what remains. It's where eternity is. And Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us in the Quran that there will be a group of people when they see the hellfire, they will start to remember, start to regret, perhaps they'll start to remember, and they will say, Ya laytani qaddamtu li hayati, woe to me if only I had invested something in my life, i.e. the akhirah, because he sees that day, that to be his real life. So I wanted to talk about this issue because it's important that you be a person who is engaging in a transaction with Allah, where that transaction profits you akhirah. In the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He talks about a transaction with Him, right? And Allah Azza wa Jal talks about the transaction that the kuffar engage in, right? فَمَا رَبِحَتْ تِجَارَتُهُمْ, and their transaction was not profitable because they sold the akhirah and their deen for this worldly life, right? So it's very important to talk about this generally, but specifically to people who are doing business and making money. Because when you start gathering that money, you start gaining that money, you could find that it becomes a fitna for you. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمُ الْفَقْرَ وَكَمَا قَالَ, I don't fear for you poverty, but I fear for you that you will become wealthy. Because when people become wealthy, and if they're not grounded in their deen, right? Even if they are grounded in their deen, wealth can become a fitna. Right? So I saw fun and good saying, look at the wealth of Abu Bakr and Abdurrahman ibn Auf and so on and so forth. But look at the heart of Abu Bakr. Look at the heart of Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Right? Look at their love for the akhirah. When
the Prophet Abu Bakr on multiple occasions gave away his entire net worth in charity. Yeah. Not worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, what am I going to do, how am I going to... He just gave it all for the sake of Allah. Yeah. That's how little he was attached. Even though he had it, he was willing to let go of it in a second. And he did. How many slaves did he free? He was the one who freed Bilal radiallahu anhu, right? He gave his wealth up for the sake of Allah. He gave away the dunya for the sake of Allah. And that's what you find. He was able to attain it again and again and again and again. And then he just kept giving it away, kept giving it away. He could have been a billionaire, but he decided to give it all up.
Absolutely, yeah. So the idea here is that we want to face towards the akhirah, right? Just because you're doing business doesn't mean, just because you're wealthy doesn't mean that you can't be a person who's facing towards the akhirah, right? We hear this concept zuhud, which in English they call it asceticism, but I don't even know what that means in English, right? But in essence, zuhud is to abandon the dunya. A man came and asked Imam Ahmed, can I be a person who is a zahid, i.e. someone who's abandoned the dunya, even if I have wealth? And Imam Ahmed said, yes, if that wealth is in your hand and not in your heart, or if that wealth is in your pocket and not in your heart. So that's
well, one could even argue that in order to actually have, as in to abandon something, implies that you had the opportunity to get it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like if you don't even have the option, like how can you leave it off if it was just you didn't even have a way to get it?
The scholars discuss this. They say the poor person is not a zahid. A zahid is a person who had it or
Had the opportunity for it.
has the opportunity for it. He's got the money in it, right? The money comes in. But when it comes in, what does he do? He spends for the sake of Allah.
Okay, cool. So let's contextualize everything. Let's talk about the dunya. How is the dunya considered? Because for us, like, it sometimes feels like this is it. This is our life. If I don't succeed here, if I don't become financially successful, if I don't become successful in the eyes of the people here, I'm a failure. I've failed.
Just really quickly, if you're a course creator or a coach, are you confused about how to scale your business to 7 figures? If so, you might be even more confused as to how we managed to scale our courses to 3 million plus whilst we were seeking knowledge and giving dawah full time. And you might be even more confused to see all of these brothers here that you can see on screen, how I've been helping them use the exact same formula for their businesses to scale their course and coaching services. We're seeing crazy results. Brothers are doubling their income in the first 2.5 weeks. Some brothers making 5x in the first week that they've been working with us. Some brothers doubling their monthly recurring revenue in just 2 days. So alhamdulillah, the fruits are there and I want to share them with you, inshallah ta'ala. I know you've been working hard, building your course, your coaching program, but you want to get to 7 figures so you can earn back your time to worship Allah, seek knowledge, spend the money that you make for Allah's sake, spend time with your family and create wealth for the next generation with Allah's permission. So for that reason, I'm going to show you and share with you the 7 steps that I've outlined to 7 figures that we did, that we implemented to get to 3 million plus. I'm going to share this with you and give you access to this on the 23rd of this month on Sunday, 2:30 p.m. UK time. Just go to the link below right now. Just quickly go right now and register your interest. Save your seat before you miss out. This is going to be the biggest event in the Muslim entrepreneurial space, inshallah ta'ala. And I have made a promise to make every person who misses it regret not turning up. So with that said, we'll see you there.
And that's the way people see this dunya. But how does the deen show us the reality of them? What are some of the narrations that have come and some of the examples that are given that show you how meaningless this dunya really is?
You know, the dunya is described always in a very, very low way. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came across a carcass of a dead animal, and not only was it dead, it had missing a limb, and part of his ear was ripped. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Who will take this from me? Who will take this from me?" Sahaba said, "Ya Rasulullah, if it was alive, we wouldn't take it from you because of it's been
deformities
of the deformities that are with it." The Prophet said, "This is the example of the dunya. Like this dunya is worthless to Allah like that." Right? It means nothing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Imam Ibn al-Qayyim a lot describes the woman as the dunya as a woman, a deceitful woman. In fact, there's one part in this book where he talks about the dunya like as a prostitute. And he talks to the person as a dayuth. It's like you're a dayuth. You run after this dunya that every man's just come to. And she's deceived every man. Right? She's deceived every single man. In fact, I read a statement from him yesterday. He said something deep. He said, the dunya, if you present yourself to it and you show your interest in it, what does it do? It makes you serve her. Dunya, she'll make you serve her.
Really?
And then she'll imprison you, enslave you, and then she'll leave you for another man, right? But just like a woman, if you show the dunya, I'm not interested, she comes running after you. And the Prophet ﷺ said that those who wake up, those who, their aspirations, the akhirah, the next life is what they want. Allah Azza wa Jal, He brings His affairs together, places contentment and richness in His heart. And the dunya is dragged to Him. وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ. And the dunya is dragged, like it's humiliated, dragged. Come, please take me, right? Please take me. Allah will give that dunya to the person, right? But it's for the person who's not even looking for it. So, look, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions, in case you guys are wondering where, this book is called Al-Fawaid, right? Imam Ibn al-Qayyim has many amazing books. And I personally believe, and Allah knows best, that Allah Azza wa Jalla really helped me save my sick heart, and it's still sick, but from this man's works, right? I remember for 10 years, I just wanted to study Ibn al-Qayyim. You know, this it's different, wallahi. And currently studying his books with my sheikh, and this is one of the books that we're reading together. He mentions that a person will not be able to abandon the dunya and face the akhirah unless he does 2 things. Number one, he has to observe and study the dunya. And number two, he has to observe and study the akhirah. You see, when he observes the dunya, he's got to focus on the following things. Number one, the fact that dunya will not remain. Number two, the fact that the dunya is actually deficient. Number three, the fact that the dunya is actually low. Actually low. Like it's, as in, even the stuff that you enjoy in it is like a lowly enjoyment, right? Doesn't last for long. Every enjoyment in it doesn't last for long. Let's talk about women, for example.
Every enjoyment comes with consequences.
Every enjoyment comes with consequences.
Like, if you use women, for example, like how many guys out there, they enjoy loads of women. They end up with STIs. They end up, getting a woman pregnant out of wedlock, and then they're strapped in for child support and she's using the child against him as a pawn.
But even if he doesn't do haram and he marries a woman, right? And this is not something that we're like blaming or shaming women for, because this is humans, right? And the opposite can be said for men. But that woman is inherently deficient. Intimacy-wise, she comes on her period once a month. Then her hormones are all over the place, right? And it's like you've taken that enjoyment, but you have to still stress with it. Likewise, business, right? You're earning money, but it comes with how much stress. Managing operations, finances, this, that, blah, 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 making more money is actually stress. Is even the things in it which are enjoyable actually cause you a lot of frustration. So that's the first thing. Look at the dunya for what it really, really, really is. The second thing he said is look at the akhirah for what it is. And all of the things that are inside of the akhirah. Allah said, وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. But the next life is better. And it remains. Akhi, the akhirah is not just that it remains, but it's better than everything that the money is better, the houses are better, the fruits are better, everything is better. Everything is better. And the akhirah is not just that your desires and your pleasures are fulfilled through all of these things that you want in terms of material, but akhi, you get to see Allah and you get to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ, and Allah becomes pleased with you.
So if it's the case that it's so clear cut that the dunya is so low, like even some of the examples mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah, it's worth less to Allah than the wing of a fly.
That's another hadith, yeah.
If you were to put your finger into the ocean and lift it up, and what water remains on your finger, that's like all of these narrations and the carcass, and this is the equivalent of the dunya. Why then is it, especially us Muslims, we become so infatuated and we just get swept up by the dunya? When we know this, we read the Quran, we hear these hadith, we go to the Jummah khutbah, we hear why is it then that the effect that it's supposed to have isn't being had on our hearts?
So Imam Ibn Qayyim discusses this and he said there's only one of two, without a third.
There's only two possible options.
Only two possible options. There is no third option. The first option is that the person has a deficiency in his intellect, right? And the second is that the person has a deficiency in his iman. So what does it mean, deficiency in his intellect? Deficiency in his intellect, i.e. he believes the akhirah is better. He knows the akhirah is better, but he chooses this. That's a stupid person. The person is dim-witted, right? That's dim-wittedness.
It's like, for example, if I'm trying to think of an example that would illustrate and exaggerate, like if someone said to you, I'll give you debit card with $1 billion on there, you can spend whatever you want, but you only get to use it for 6 hours. And then after those 6 hours, for the rest of your life, 40 years, for example, you're going to have no arms, no legs, you can't speak and you can't see. Only a dim-witted person, for those 6 hours of enjoyment, would put at risk or, mash up the rest of their 40 years on this earth. And there's probably people out there that would do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the only way to explain that is, bro, like intellectually, you're just missing a few screws.
Another example is you can sleep with this woman, but she's got STDs.
Yeah.
Right?
There are people that will do that.
Woman,
You'll get HIV, you'll get AIDS, you're going to be struggling, right? But because of her beauty and because of...
Yeah.
A man will do that.
He will do that. So that's a problem in intellect. The second thing is he doesn't actually believe the akhirah is better. That's a problem in iman. Or he's a kafir. Or his iman is weak. His belief is not that strong.
His desire is overcoming.
So his iman is weak, right? The more iman, the more and a lot of the times. So what iman comes from knowledge. It comes from certainty, right?
Actions of worship.
Comes from all of these things.
Staying away from sins.
So either you are struggling with your deficiency in your iman or deficiency in your intellect, and some people are plagued with both, right? Some people are plagued with both deficiency in intellect or iman. Sorry. So it honestly is stupid. It is genuinely stupid, and that. Yeah, and sometimes it's funny because people who seem so intelligent and so intellectual in the worldly life are from just the greatest disbelievers, man. And with that said, it just shows that really they're not very intelligent, are they? Like, there was a man called Ibn Sina who, is celebrated amongst the kuffar as a Muslim philosopher, but he was a disbeliever. And Imam Ibn Taymiyyah and many scholars, they mention this, right? So there's a statement of some of the scholars, they say, أجمع العلماء, the scholars unanimously agreed from Khurasan that there is no one that is from the area that Ibn Sina was from that was أذكى منه, that was more intelligent than him. وفي نفس الوقت أجمع, that they unanimously agreed that there was no one that was more أكفر منه, that was more of a disbeliever than him. So you might be smart, but you're not intellectual. There's a difference between being a person who's got ذكاء, as in you're smart, but to be intelligent, يعني عاقل.
How many university PhD professors are there, and they, in their self-amazement, they feel like it's an intelligent thing to, refuse and deny that there is a creator. No, the Big Bang. They literally come to you and say to you, yeah, something came from nothing. 0 + 0 = 1. Like, and they think this is something, like when you reach a point where it's just like, this is the new intellect. This. Even just thinking about it, like, it just makes it's like you reach such stupidity that you now think, this is the new intellect now.
It's funny because actually, when you mention that, I'm just pondering back to my early days when I used to give da'wah to kuffar, and Allah gave me the ability to speak to so many intellectual professors from some of the most prestigious universities in America, professors from Cambridge that would push atheism. And every time I spoke with them, I was like, you're so dumb. Like, genuinely. And they wouldn't be able to answer like basic things. And it was like, inna lil haqqi nur, the nur has a light, the truth has a light. And these people, they can come with this facade of I'm intelligent, but bro, you're not. You're really stupid. You're genuinely stupid.
Extremely.
Right? So ala kullin, one of the things that really helps to understand, the dunya and the reality of it, is to look at how Allah Azza wa Jalla describes the dunya in comparison to the akhirah in the Quran. There's one ayah that's been very close to me for the last 10 years, in which Allah Azza wa Jalla describes the dunya. And it amazed me, because when I pondered on this ayah, I was like, subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jalla really, 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 really encompassed the dunya in this ayah, right? And there's many ayat like it, but Allah says, اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو. Allah says that, know that the life of this world is only 5 things. As in this dunya. And this is a reality check. This ayah is a reality check. Like, as in, if this is all you live for, bro, like, wow. No matter you kill yourself and you get depressed and you're not happy and fulfilled in life, when this is all it is, اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لاعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد. Number 1, the dunya is just playing around. Number 2, it's lahu, which is like distraction and deviation. Diversion, right? The third thing is zina, beautification, tafakhur, boasting, wa takathurun. And the last and final thing is to just gather. But what you gather in 2 things: wealth and children. the dunya is these 5 things. Is these 5 things. So let's go through each one. So la'ib. La'ib. What's la'ib? It's to play around. La'ib is talking about doing things with your body that divert you from the remembrance of Allah and His dhikr and His remembrance. And sorry, and the salah. So la'ib is anything that you do with your body that diverts you and distracts you from prayer and remembering Allah. Okay? Some of those things might be permissible, by the way. We're not saying these things are haram. No one's saying that having children and making money and looking good is haram. No. It's permissible. But come on, bro. We're saying this is what the dunya is. Nothing more. Right? And you can have the pinnacle of the dunya by doing these things. And then what else do you have? Right? Is this where is this all that your life amounts to? Is then, like, do you understand? So the first thing is la'ib, which is playing around. And think about it, literally playing games, sports. How much of people's lives are just games and sports? Like just gaming and sports, and other types of just playing around and being a fool, right? Just being a guy who's just playing around. So is that something that's like great? No. Okay, lahu, which is diversion. Now, diversion is anything is in the heart that distracts you from the salah and remembering Allah. Anything from the heart. So things in your heart internally that are distracting you, right? How much of us just spend our day just thinking about things that have no benefit? So literally your life is actions of just playing around and joking around and being foolhardy that don't remind you of Allah, or just thinking about things and being distracted internally by things that don't remind you of Allah Azza wa Jal. On that is an ayah, it's a little bit scary, quite scary. Allah said, وَلَا تُطِعْ مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ وَكَانَ أَمْرُهُ فُرُطًا. Allah said, do not follow the one whose heart we have made heedless from remembering us. You know what's scary about the ayah? Allah didn't say, don't follow the one whose tongue we have made silent from remembering us. Don't follow the one whose heart we have made heedless from remembering us. What's the difference between two?
One is an action that you do with your...
Yeah.
And the other one is like your actual
But why is that
disposition.
scarier?
Because if your heart's turned away, it's harder to get back onto it
No,
than
but
if you're just not doing it at any given
how
time.
many of us remember Allah from our tongue,
But not with our heart.
but not with our heart? As we're doing subhanallah, 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 but
Heart's somewhere
heedless.
else.
The salah is what? Being prayed through the tongues, but the heart is heedless. مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا.
And
Plus-
one way to... Sorry.
No, go on.
One way to measure that or get an indication of that is how often are you praying your salah and you just forget which rak'ah that was I on. And that can happen sometimes. How often though? Some people I've spoken to brothers, well, almost every salah, I just forget, wait, was that the second sitting or the first sitting? Was that the first sajda or the second sajda? Like, do I need to stand up? Should I sit down? Bro, they just full in their mind, they're fully like even this, but and it happens to us as well sometimes. I remember like sometimes, bro, like it's as if shaitan will try and come to you, like bro, like you start getting business ideas. He'll start trying to put some serious business ideas in your mind. Why are you trying to distract you? And you have to just bring it back and focus. And that's one of the hardest things to do is when good thoughts start coming into your mind while you're praying, you have to just cancel that out of the regime and just carry on praying. And that can sometimes be the hardest thing. But you're right, if your heart's not there, you can be doing it. And that's what the hypocrites were doing, right? At the time of the Prophet, at the time of the Prophet, I saw a, I can't remember what it was. I saw a comment and it actually really made me think. He said, look at these, call us Wahhabis, because they never say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam properly. They always just rush it. And when I look back at my videos, I actually do rush it. So that's an active effort I'm going to try and make to make sure I say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam properly, so that can't, because it's true, when I looked at it, I don't know why, there's no connection there, but it just seemed very rushed. Anyway, sorry, back to the point.
We're not Wahhabis, by the way. You were just mentioning.
I was just mentioning what they. I mean, I'm a slave of Al-Wahhab, yeah, but
Allah.
Anyway, the point that I was making was the point I was making?
About the heart.
About the heart. Oh God, carry on.
So, okay, so coming back to the ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're going through what the dunya is right now. So far we know it's just actions that you're playing around, things that you do with your body, which is what? distracting you from remembering Allah, or things that you do with your heart. Like you're just sitting there, just thinking about waffle, like just thinking about waffle, right? All right, what's the next thing? Zinatun. Just things looking pretty, things looking beautiful. Wallahi, man, some people, how much of their life is just this? Go to the gym just to look nice. Women, they spend their life just, and by the way, it's not bad for women, right? Because Allah mentioned in the Quran, she was brought up in beauty, right? She likes beauty, and it's more understandable for women than it is for men, but not to the point where
Your primary goal.
that's all your life is, just makeup,
Redecorating the
clothes.
house every week.
the house, the car. And you know what's shocking, Act? And this is the part that's shocking. Most people, why are they earning money? It's just for this. Clothes that look nice, a house that looks nice, a holiday destination that looks nice, where I can take nice pictures and put them up so other people can look at how nice it looks. It's just about beauty.
Aesthetics, yeah.
It's just about aesthetic. That's, you know, when you deep it, like, prove to me right now that your life is your life, and what you're working towards, and what you live, and what your aspirations are outside of just looking good. How shallow of a life! How shallow of a life! Just once I've dressed myself, now I want to dress my house. Now I want to dress my car, then my wife, then my kids. Okay, once I've dressed everyone, games, sports, playing around, right? Okay, cool. What's the next thing? وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ. Boasting. I made more money than you. I'm stronger than you. I have more knowledge than you. Which in Sharia, which is one of the worst types of things. Sharia is not supposed to be something that you're boasting. It's supposed to make you humble, right? It's always competition. We're better than you. My child's better than you. My people are better than you. My ends are better than yours, right? Tafakhur. And then the last one, takathurun fil amwali wal awlad, is you just gathering in what?
Wealth and children.
Wealth and children. Akhi, wallahi, for those who have children, once they get to that stage, it's just kids. Everything becomes about the kids, right? To the point where, and about the kids, like what? Just about the kids' bodies, not their hearts. I remember having this conversation with my wife when, we were expecting my daughter. I was like, we have to make sure that we can't be like people when the kid is being born, the preparation is only for the nappies, the nursery, the clothes. But what about the preparation for the kid's heart?
Even when the woman was pregnant, everyone focuses on what she should eat, what she shouldn't eat, what she should drink, what she shouldn't, what medicines to take, what medicines not to take. But what about what are you playing around that baby? When that baby's inside and it can hit, and you're watching TikTok on your phone, and there's music and there's all sorts. The baby's hearing that.
Yeah.
You're more concerned about, I don't want to eat this food because it's bad for the baby in terms of its physical health. You're not concerned about what the baby's consuming in terms of its spirituality, and that shows that which one is the priority for you.
And I'll give you guys something. My daughter was not an easy kid, right? She was young, cry a lot, whatnot. But there was one thing that would silence her and calm her down immediately, and that was the Quran. And Allah knows best, and that's from the virtue and tawfiq of Allah. But we used to play her the Quran while she was inside of her mother, inside of my wife was carrying her. We used to play the Quran to her, right? So these are things that have an effect. So then Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives an example, an analogy, when He describes these 5 things. He said, كَمَثِلِ غَيْثٍ أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارِ نَبَاتُهُ ثُمَّ يَهِيجُ فَتَرَاهُ مُصْفَرًّا ثُمَّ يَكُونُ حُطَامًا. Wallahi, baligh, eloquence. Allah said, this dunya is like the example of rain.
Of rain.
Rain that comes down and it brings out crops, right? Crops. أعجب الكفار. The disbelievers, when they look at it, they become amazed. And some said here, this means kuffar here means farmers. But Imam Ibn Uthaymeen actually mentions that kuffar here means kuffar, disbelievers. Right? The ones who disbelieve in Allah. Because they are the ones who become they are the ones who become amazed with the dunya. The believers don't become amazed with the dunya. Who becomes amazed with the dunya? The kuffar. The disbelievers. The believers, they look at the dunya, I take what I need and I keep it moving. Right?
Rather, they get amazed by Allah. Allah causes that.
Causes to happen, right? So, كَمَثِلِ غَيْثٍ أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارِ نَبَاتُهُ. When it it comes out. You look at the flowers, the trees, look how beautiful the garden is. Look at this, look at that. Allahu Akbar. Right? That's what we say. They look at it and they think, whoa, how beautiful. They look at the sun, they start worshipping the sun. They look at the, you know what I'm saying? They look at the universe is so good, the universe, Big Bang, it came from itself. And then what happens suddenly? But what happens to that? Just imagine you're looking at this garden with all this beauty in there and you're amazed by it. ثم يهيج فتراه مصفرا. But eventually it turns yellow and it becomes hard. Doesn't happen to every crop. Doesn't happen to every crop. ثم يكون حطاما. And then it breaks and it becomes brittle and it cracks.
It dies basically.
Akhi, is that not the dunya? Is that not every single woman you're running after? Stay with her for long enough, she becomes yellow, starts to wrinkle. Or maybe before she becomes old, her character starts to wrinkle. Her tongue starts to wrinkle, becomes dry until the marriage breaks. The business, what happens? When you look at it, amazing. Then it becomes hard, takes your mental health away. All this, that, and the other happens.
Might even go down the drain. Boom,
and you lose the business and it crumbles in front of you, very nice. And Ibn Uthaymin said, here, the disappearing is of two types. Either it will leave or you will leave.
Yeah, because when you die, you don't take it with you.
Do you understand? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. Okay, that was the dunya. What about the akhirah? وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ. But in the next life, there is severe punishment. And that's for the disbelievers. And for the Muslims who are sinners. Right? May Allah forgive us and protect us. Ameen. On the other hand, Allah said, وَمَغْفِرَةٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانٌ. Forgiveness from Allah and Allah's pleasure. You know this concept of Allah's pleasure, you know when you think about it, wallahi, it brings tears to your eyes. Like Allah is saying, I will be pleased with you. وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. Allah said in the Quran, when Allah described Jannah, He described Jannah. Then after describing Jannah, Allah said, and then the pleasure of Allah is greater. Like you just imagine, you know, sometimes you just, look, we all feel that sense of like recognition when someone great looks at us and says, that was good. Pleased with you. Wallahi, billah alayk. Do we not feel that in some way or some sense?
When your father, especially.
Right, you said to me that time when your father said that to you in a car.
Yeah, touch me. Big time.
Likewise, you know, your father or your teacher,
yeah.
right, looks at you and says, wallahi, the feeling is different. Imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says to you, I'm pleased with you, Imran. Bakr, I'm pleased with you. From Allah, the King of Kings. Imagine that. And then Allah says, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. And what is the reality? What is it? This dunya is nothing. This dunya is nothing. And this is hasr, right? Which means that it's nothing else other than this. Allah sums up the dunya in this one sentence, subhanahu wa ta'ala. This dunya is nothing except for an enjoyment that is a delusion. That's it. If you want to know what the summary of the dunya is, the summary of the dunya is وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. That's it. That's the dunya. That's a summary of what the dunya is. It is a delusional enjoyment. It deludes you from the reality, and in that delusion you're having fun.
So now let's talk about how to have this mentality, this mindset, or as I like to call it, disposition, where the dunya is something that you just throw to the side, and the akhirah is something that you give your time and attention towards. And something that we've discussed many times on this channel, usually in the context of business, and usually you hear this in the context of business, is the concept of delaying gratification, right? Where, let's just say you want to start a business, just know you're going to have to, for the first 6 months to a year, grind it out with very little immediate reward, in the hope and in the expectation of eventually you'll get the gratification, right? Delay the gratification and you'll see it then. And most people, when they hear delay gratification, what they mean is sacrifice as I said, for 6 months to a year, reap the fruits of it in a few years' time. I'm saying, as Muslims, is there not a greater delay of gratification that we should be doing? Which is what? Sacrifice this dunya for the gratification that's going to come in the akhirah. You might not see the fruits of your good deeds today. This might be something that you might not even see it tomorrow or in this life at all. But 100% the fruits will be there for you on Yawm al-Qiyamah. 100%.
100%.
Whether you see it in this life or not is a different story. So, number one, being able to, and that comes from discipline, being able to delay your gratification in this life is good. It's needed in business, in your relationships, in your, you know, in your religious life. But for the akhirah, that is where the real delaying of the gratification comes in. And one of the easiest ways to actually practically implement this, from my experience, is anytime you get to a crossroads or some kind of decision is going to be made where you're going to have to weigh up that path or that path, just ask yourself, if I was to die today, if today was to be the last day of, because if you look at the Salaf, that's how they used to live their life, right? If you used to ask someone from the Salaf, if you were told you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do? Like, how would you live your life? They're like, oh, I'll do everything I'm currently doing. Like, there's literally nothing more that I can add in. If you live your life like that, with that mindset, and ask that question every time, it's going to be easy to let go of the temptation of dunya. When a woman comes to you for zina, do you really want to die and doing zina have been the last action that you did? Do you really want signing that student loan paperwork to be the last action that you do when you meet Allah, and that's what you come to Him with because you were worried about the future? Akhi, worry about the future. The greatest future that there is. Your future is not 20, 30 years from now. Your future is eternity, and you will decide today how you get there.
Such a deep, bro. Your future is eternity.
Your future is eternity. Like people say,
I've never heard it like that before.
what are you going to do for the future? Or you know, what are you bruv, this is, because that's what people say to that. Remember, literally, with student loan, we say, what about your future? I said, bruv, this is for my future.
That's actually mad.
Me letting go of this is because of my future. You men are talking about future, but you men are short-sighted. You're talking about future being here. I'm talking about future being forever. But people don't deep it. But I'm saying, if you approach every single point of contact with this dunya in terms of this path or this path, and you ask yourself this question, there's only one path you'll ever take. And that is the path of righteousness and khair.
No, absolutely, man. And you know, this issue is like so serious. Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually warns the people who become pleased with the dunya, to the point where Allah even tells the believers off and reprimands them, such that if you want to do the opposite, don't do this. Don't be pleased with the dunya. Do you understand? Like, because a lot of people are pleased with the dunya. Do you understand? And you being pleased with dunya and wanting the dunya is what will cause you to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? Like you just said, if you ever ask yourself that question, what's for my future? You make the right decision, right? So this ayah here is powerful. Like Allah is talking to the Sahaba, who are the best of people. Allah says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا ما لكم إذا قيل لكم انفروا في الأرض يا أيها الذين آمنوا ما لكم إذا قيل لكم انفروا في سبيل الله ثاقلتم إلى الأرض. Oh, you who believe, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? That when you're told to go out and fight in the path of Allah, you become heavy on the earth. Like, you know, it's like you're told, go now and fight for Allah's sake. But what happens? It's like you're just heavy, you can't move. And how many people feel like that when it comes to salah? Just can't move. How many people feel like that when it comes to, like, it's weird, like, I know because I'm guilty of this in the past, right? Like sometimes there's something you're supposed to do, maybe go to a dars, go to a lesson, get up, do your Quran, but you just feel heavy. Where does that come from? Allah tells you, أَرَضِيتُمْ بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا مِنَ الْآخِرَةِ. Are you becoming heavy on the earth because you're pleased with the worldly life over the akhirah? That's got to be the reason. The reason why you're struggling to go out there and work for the next life is because you're really, really loving this life. You're really invested here. You're pleased with this. This is what you like. Allah said, subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَمَا مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. That there is, this worldly life, when it comes to enjoyment, is nothing in comparison to the next life, except a very, very small enjoyment. You understand? So Imam Ibn Qayyim actually commented this. He said, so this ayah shows that based on how much you want the dunya, it will directly impact how much you're able to worship and obey Allah. It's directly proportionate. That your want for the dunya and your pleasure of the dunya is directly gonna what? Impact how heavy you feel when you want to do acts of worship. And there's another ayah which is really scary. Like Allah Azza wa Jalla talks about the people who don't really have a real want for the akhirah. Allah said they're gonna go for hellfire. Like you're going hell, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا وَرَضُوا بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَاطْمَأَنُّوا بِهَا وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ آيَاتِنَا غَافِلُونَ. Allah said, those who don't who don't hope to meet Allah, they don't hope for that meeting with their Lord, right? And they're pleased with this life, and they're heedless of the Quran, they're heedless of these signs. Allah said, أُولَٰئِكَ مَأْوَاهُمُ النَّارِ. That is the people who are going hell. That is exactly the description of those who will be in hell, right? Those who don't hope to meet Allah, those who are pleased with this dunya. وَاطْمَأَنُّوا بِهَا. And they have what? From our ayat, they're heedless. Why? They are people who are going to go to hellfire. So, these are things that are there. I just want to read some ayat that really impacted me, okay? When I was going through this with the Shaykh. Because it's the way Ibn al-Qayyim ends it. He goes, وَيَكْفِي فِي الزُّهُدِ فِي الدُّنْيَا. He goes, and enough to just summarize everything that I just said and to get you to abandon the dunya is these ayat here. This is going to be enough. There's nothing else you're going to need after this. And at the end of it, I actually felt so like, I actually asked Shaykh, I said, Shaykh, this makes me feel like I actually don't want to earn any money. Like this makes me, like I've got to go to work after the lesson. So I was like, Shaykh, and then I asked him a question, and then I'll mention and I'll share the answer that he gave. أَفَرَأَيْتَ إِن مَتَّعْنَاهُمْ سِنِينَ. Allah said, do you not see that if we give them years to live where they're enjoying themselves, right? Years. ثُمَّ جَاءَهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يُوعَدُونَ. But what's going to come after those years of enjoyment? The thing that they were warned about. Death will come, day of judgment will come. As in, that's an inevitability. You want the dunya? Cool. Enjoy it. ثُمَّ جَاءَهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يُوعَدُونَ. But then it's going to come to you what was promised, i.e. the threat. مَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يُمَتَّعُونَ. What will it benefit you now? When you're in your grave, when you're standing before Allah, what will it benefit you now? All of those years of enjoyment. Does that bring you any benefit when you're in your grave? That money, that wealth, those cars, those clothes, any benefit, does it come from there? Another ayah, Allah said, وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ كَأَن لَّمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا سَاعَةً مِّنَ النَّهَارِ يَتَعَارَفُونَ بَيْنَهُم. Allah said, on the day where they will be gathered, كَأَن لَّمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا سَاعَةً مِّنَ النَّهَارِ. When they're gathered on the day of judgment, it will be as if they had not remained in this world except for an hour in a day. When you're standing on the day of judgment, it will seem like those 60, 70 years of enjoyment and money and cars and clothes and intimacy and women and all of that, it was just 1 hour. That's what it's going to feel like when you're in the future. So, and the next ayah, and this one really hits. And there's actually a really powerful recitation of this ayah, which we're going to link below for those of you who want to listen to this. Allah said, قَالَ كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ عَدَدَ سِنِينَ. It's going to be asked to them, how long did you stay in the earth? How many years did you remain when you were on this earth? Will be asked the people, the criminals. I think it's asked them in hell. قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم فاسأل العادين. Say a day or a portion of a day. That's how long we stayed. Ask those who are counting. We don't even know how long I lived for. قال إلا بثتم إلا قليلا. You didn't live and remain on this earth except for a very short period of time. لو أنكم كنتم تعلمون. If only you people had known that. If only you knew that. لو أنكم كنتم تعلمون. If only you had known that. If only we realize that today. We're only here for a short period of time. Another ayah, Allah Azza wa Jal said that they're going to say, I have many things to say. So when you go through something like this, you know, you get the urge to just what?
Leave off the dunya in its entirety.
No, and that's good. But
But even like abandon your obligations.
And responsibilities, right?
Responsibilities.
So
how do you balance?
How
do the two, instead of clashing,
Yeah.
how do you make them?
Yeah, so I asked the Sheikh, well, I've got to go to work now. So what do? I don't feel like it. I said, Imran, it comes down to your intention. He said, if your intention is for the akhirah, if you're working for the akhirah, then, and you intend that, suddenly it becomes reward. Suddenly it becomes reward. Suddenly everything you do. And you know, it was at that point I realized how important it is to clearly define your financial objectives before you actually start making money.
Yes.
Because you'll be in the middle of it, it's extremely distracting and hard.
Swept away.
Yeah. Like I was like, you know, when he said that straight away, family. Got to bring my parents into a Muslim country. Got auntie who doesn't have any kids, I need to bring her. I've got my sister, her kids. I've got nephews and nieces. So, you know, suddenly you start thinking, okay, cool. So that's where my money's going to go. That's where I'm working with. Then there's a masjid I need to build. There's a few masajid I want to build. I would love to be in a position where I can fund some students' knowledge and mashayikh, fund the da'wah, fund my own da'wah campaigns. Okay, cool. Suddenly it's like, all right, cool, let's get to work. Do you understand? And it doesn't necessarily even have to be like a glorious like da'wah project. Like even just the fact that you want to provide for your family and you want to make sure your family, your relatives, and even have some money for them to inherit from you after you're dead. You know, there's a statement from some of the Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Barak, he said that is more virtuous than a person who's in the front line of the battlefield. Of course, he's not talking about the obligatory jihad, which is the defensive jihad. He's talking about the voluntary jihad. He said, for you to be in a position where you can provide for your family so that they don't have to go around begging people, right, is better than you being on the front line, which is a big thing to say, right? And Abdullah ibn Barak himself was a mujahid. He spent half the year in jihad. And, you know, the last thing I would say on this that kind of really made sense to me was this statement again in this book that Imam Ibn al-Qayyim brings. Well, you know, people were like, man, yeah, you read all these kuffar's books on productivity and this, that. Wallah, he talks about rizq, he talks about motivation in here, he talks about productivity, he talks about everything in here. Allah, but for the rest of the Sharia, he mentioned the statement by Imam Bishr ibn Harith, who was an Imam from the Salaf, who was also himself a Zahid. And he said that the people of the Akhirah are of three types. He said the believers that are people from the Akhirah are three types. And he mentioned them in order from the worst to the best. Or the lowest, I should say, to the best.
Yeah.
The first is a person who worships Allah, but he's got attachment to the dunya. The second is a person who worships Allah and he's got no attachment to the dunya. He's a Zahid. But there's a level higher than him, which is a person who worships Allah and he takes or leaves from the dunya based on what pleases Allah. If it pleases Allah for him to go in and take from the dunya, if him taking something from the dunya, a wife, or more than one wife, or money, or wealth, right? Because this is going to please Allah, because maybe that money is going to be used for the Muslims or whatever it might be. Sometimes even, and this is something that, you know, we should take with a pinch of salt, but just going out with the brothers, which I actually don't like to do anymore. But sometimes I'm not trying to act like I'm righteous, but just to give you an example, I think, this one's for the brothers, to bring happiness in the hearts of the believers. Maybe we can remind and talk about Allah sometimes. Do you get me? But let's just say, even if it's not talking about Allah, I might just go, just to make them happy. Because placing happiness in the heart of the believers is what? It's a thing you get rewarded for, right? And then leaving, saying no to the brothers. I'm not coming out today because I've got something greater I'm working on. No to money. No to that transaction. no to that woman, no to these things. Why? Because this is not going to please Allah. So you make your taking and your leaving of the dunya. It's not that you are attached to the dunya. It's not that you're detached from dunya completely. But no. You attach and detach based on that which is most pleasing to Allah. And I'd just like to add there that that's also very hard to do without knowledge. It's without knowledge. Because Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said that the knowledgeable person is not the one who knows what's right from wrong. Because everyone can tell you leaving off the dunya is better than being attached to the dunya, right? But he said the knowledgeable person is the one who knows the greater of the two goods and the lesser of the two evils.
One thing I would conclude it on, which is a hadith where we've mentioned many, many times on this channel, especially in the context of what's happening right now in the world with the Muslims in Palestine, but also all over. You know, there's in Kashmir and the Uyghur Muslims and Syria, and there's so much all around the world, but specifically Palestine, because that's the genocide that's happening at the moment, is the hadith about all the people who come to you and eat from you as if you're a pack of wolves eating food. And the companions ask,
not a pack of wolves, but they will gather, just say it again. It's like people who have gathered around a plate, hungry. About to eat.
The hadith that mentions that the Muslims will be attacked by all the different people and all the different nations, hungry. Is it animals or people?
People that have come around.
People that have come to a plate of food and they're ravenous, and everyone's just trying to get their little bite. And the companion asked, "Will it be because we will be little on that day, like in number? Like, won't be enough of us to defend ourselves?" And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, "No, rather you will be many, like the froth of the ocean, right?"
Yeah.
And
you
then
will be like that you will be large in number, but you will be like the froth of the ocean.
Yeah, sorry, that you will be. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that you will be large in number, but you'll be like the froth of the ocean. And the companions asked, like, why? Like, why would that be a situation? What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mention? Because you will have wahan. Wahan will come into you, which is love for the dunya. Literally what we're talking about today. Love for the dunya will enter you, and you will hate death. Which obviously, if you love the dunya and you leave off the akhirah, you're going to hate to die. Because this thing that you've invested so much into, your time, your effort, your mortgage, your student loan, your haram relationship, everything that you were, your physical body and whatever, all that was for this life. You're going to hate to go to somewhere where you got nothing. It's like transferring from a job or a position where you're at the top. Now suddenly you have to go into an entry-level role. But there, the entry-level role is the hellfire. There is no entry-level role. You're going to leave that off and go there. Why? Because love for the dunya, you hate. And this is the reason why Muslims are being destroyed. And this is why it's so important for us to discuss this topic and realign. Even though we're talking about being righteous and being rich, but it's important to remember that alignment has to be there. With that said, hopefully you guys benefited from this episode. Inshallah, we'll see you on another episode of Righteous and Rich, where we teach you, with Allah's permission, how to be righteous and, of course, how to be rich. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.